Welcome back, everyone. It's time for the weekend review, and it is March 1st. As we enter a new month, we leave February in the dust, which we absolutely conquered. Congratulations to all those who took advantage of the trade plans last month. We just absolutely slayed it. We had an intense amount of feedback, and so I wanted to really just appreciate everyone who's been following along and giving me solid comments to encourage me to keep putting these awesome trade plans out for you guys. So as we continue into the first part of the month, we got some interesting geopolitical news that happened over the weekend. As most of you know, the United States and Israel bombed Iran. They killed the supreme leader, took him out and 40 of his guys. And so we'll see exactly where this leads us today. Apparently there is still some retaliatory actions happening as Iran has been bombing Israel and so on and so forth. So I don't know if this whole thing is done yet. I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. Obviously, I am expecting oil to gap up as usual. Whenever we have conflicts in the Middle East, that's pretty much a no-brainer. So we'll see how it affects the indices. I don't know exactly how much it's going to affect us today. When we open up, we could gap down. I don't really know. And the reason that I say that is because we're kind of right in the middle of things. And this war doesn't really affect us either way, shape, or form. So from a economic standpoint, this is, it is what it is. So with that being said, we have really just been balancing back and forth for weeks. As you guys know, I've talked about this for months and weeks. We've been essentially sitting in the same range, accomplishing nothing. And so one of two things is happening here. We are either balancing sideways to accept value for the next push higher, or we are balancing sideways in a distribution model or mode right now to essentially come lower. I am leaning to the latter, as right now we have midterms coming up. I put out a post that talks about we have a 70% chance of a 18% pullback as we come into midterms. And, we're up really, really high over the course of the past couple of years, even from last April from the Trump tariffs. We're up 35, 40%. So we are just way, way, way up here. I personally think these markets need to cool down a little bit. The AI hype is obviously showing cracks as some of these markets are coming down. But again, there's still a lot of strength in the market outside of the tech, so that could potentially continue to carry us higher. Again, this is extremely difficult for me to pick a direction for everyone, just because we're not trending. We are literally going sideways, and we've been going sideways for months and weeks and essentially not accomplishing anything. And when I say that, we've had these massive, weekly ranges, and we've nailed them left and right, sideways, upside down, whatever you want to say. We've just absolutely been crushing it. But again, we had this massive short on Thursday that brought us down. And then again, we held the lows on Friday, down in the 68.40, 68.50 area. And we finished the day exactly flat, sitting directly at the weekly point of control, which means that's weekly value, which is directly in the center of the previous week. I mean, we have really accomplished nothing but drifting back and forth and testing some levels here. So technically speaking right now on on SPX, we have not technically lost support still. We just continue to drift sideways, and we look like we could have a little weakness here, but technically from a process perspective, we're kind of just chilling, and we're able to potentially go back up. Now from an ES perspective, I have a completely different view of things. For ES, we still haven't gained on the weekly, daily, or 4-hour time frame. I still want to point to the downside overall on the ES, and I think that's the right move. But again, I don't want to steer anybody directly and say, oh, we're super bearish, because we've been going sideways for so long. This is extremely difficult trading. This is some of the most difficult trading you will probably encounter when we range sideways for like this. And, we just never break out. And so it makes it very difficult, because we're always looking for a breakout and for the next move up after they accept value. And we simply have not been doing that for weeks and months. So again, I've told other people on the stream and in the Discord room that, some people face challenges with this type of trading. I feel you. This is very hard. So don't take it too personal. This is very difficult trading, and, just follow the plans and, watch the serious momentum shift levels that I talk about in the trade plans, that I say, hey, listen, momentum shifts above or below this pivot. You have to watch for this stuff, because as we sit in this massive balance range, buyers and sellers start to take control over certain areas, and these become really important pivots. And, we have a lot of different factors that come into play here. So again, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start with VIX, then we're going to go to SPX, then we're going to kick it off finally with ES. And so let's go ahead and roll. So starting initially here with VIX, you guys can see, on Thursday, we came down and we played this massive spot right here, this big this daily monthly area that I called out for everybody. This was essentially the precursor short from 69.65 that let us down massively. We pumped up super hard, and then we kind of closed the day right here at our 1858. And the overnight session, we had drifted down quite considerably, and when we opened up, we were all the way up here, and we pushed up into our 2174 daily. Now this 2174 daily has really kept a lid on things quite substantially, okay? But again, as you look at VIX, we're still sitting in this massive range, okay? It's very similar to ES. It's very hard to pick a range here, guys, or a direction. Obviously, as you pull out and you kind of take a look at VIX from a bigger time perspective, it does look like we could continue to start grinding a little higher, okay? The only thing that concerns me is even though we're making higher lows, we are still right here in this section here, we are continuing to make lower highs. And so it really is almost like, we're kind of looking for an area here where something's going to give, right? And so what's going to happen, we don't really know. But what I do know is we have the 1962 and the 1995 weekly that's really going to be our big pivot here for above below on the midpoint. Okay. Below, however, is where it gets interesting, because if we move below the 1962, we're more than likely going to come into this 1863, 1858 area. Okay, this is very much tested. And if they push below this, we come back into this, which is so important that it could get a response, but I don't think it'll get another one of these responses. Okay, so I don't know, but I'm just, going off of experience, right? Now, if we hold the 1995 spot and push up, we have our big breakout weekly pivot that we've talked about a few times, and ultimately the 2174. This is the big daily for us to push and break out above. If this happens, it's going to flush the ES pretty hard, and the SPX for that matter. However, as long as we stay contained in here and we start to push back below here, we'll essentially drift back up in the ES and start to push higher, or the SPX for that matter. Okay, so really this is kind of our midpoint pivot that we're going to keep an eye on. This is the upper end, right? Well, this is the upper end, but we have the 2078 weekly that we've been monitoring time and time again that kind of gives us that edge in the middle of our trading day to say, okay, let me get long and take it up here, or let me get short and bring it down here. So, and then below the 1962, we come into this 1850s area, 1860s area, which really is a very important pivot for us. This would be very similar to this weekly here. It's almost like a standard deviation if you think about it. We have our, second standard, we have our mean, our first standards, and our second standards, right? And so this is kind of our, first pivot, and then this is the breakout. Again, coming down here, first pivot, and then, obviously this is the breakout. So we'll see how it all plays out for us, but it kind of gives you an idea here of what we're looking at for VIX. So let's go ahead and take a look at SPX. So I'm going to show you SPX on the 1 hour just because it gives you a little granular view here. But as you can see, guys, this is what I was talking about. Look at this. We are just sitting in here. We've been sitting in here really since 2025, since December of 2025, and maybe even longer if I go back farther. Actually, it is longer than that. We've been sitting in this range since October of 2025. We've been sitting in the same spot. And yes, we fell down and poked a few highs and lows, which were very nice when we swept this type of stuff. But if you really want to talk about what's been contained, we've been literally sitting in the same spot since January. Okay, so if you want to just talk about this area here, this is the same spot since January. This is hard. This is super duper hard. Okay, so it makes it very difficult to pick a direction. And again, like I said, SPX still technically, per my process, is pointed up. Even though I have different vibes from ES, this is something that I have to take into consideration and obviously lean into VIX to help me guide here. Okay, so we've talked about certain areas here on SPX. I'm going to throw this out. This is our big midpoint pivot. We got 68.81 daily. This is going to be a big spot for us to get above below. And if we push above, we come in here to the 69.14, 69.16 area. Technically, this is tested. This was their big gap down from Friday. They came down in here and held the leg that we called in the trade plan, which gave us the intuition to push long into our 68.81, which was a great trade. This was the only trade that I ended up taking on Friday, which is all you needed. So with that being said, now we're looking at this and saying, okay, if we push above 81, we could come into 14, but 14 is tested. The last untested area in this spot is 69.63. Okay, so this tells you right here, we will have momentum above 68.81. Below it, we have downside momentum, right? Everything's tested to the lower side now, except for this 4-hour leg at 68.03. I don't love this leg, but there is possible they could hold just because they've been in this area for so freaking long. If they held this, we want to see them get back above 68.19 and ultimately 68.83 for that rotation higher. The same thing applies here. Is if they get above 81, we'll more than likely come into 14. 14 has been tested, even though it's very important, and we could come into 69.36. I would be looking for a reaction here. But again, you'd want to see it get back below 69.14. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I'm going to pick a direction today because that's not going to happen. Okay, I'm not going to, make a call. We've had the geopolitical news. I don't even know if we're going to gap down. I doubt it. Who knows? I really don't know. I don't know. So I'm not going to pretend that I know. I'm just going to give you guys the pivots and tell you which is untested. And we have two things right here: 69.36. and 68.03. And I would be a little concerned about buying this. I would look for this to play and reclaim something significant that has a lot of tests, and then look for us to get back above this type of thing here. Okay, and the same thing here. If we push above this 14, I'd look for 36 to play, get back below 14, and that's our short, because you can clearly see they would want to fill this back in. So that's how you play it safe, guys. That's how a pro does it, and that's how I'm going to leave it for you now. So let's go ahead and take a look at ES and get into it. As usual, I always pull out the weekly market profile for you guys, because this is a great way for us to determine value and kind of where we're at with things. And this really just reinforces exactly what I was telling you guys has happened. We closed right here on Friday, directly at our weekly point of control for the week last week. Okay, now technically it's the previous weekly point of control, but either way, at the time it was value. Okay, directly in the middle of our value area, right? And then again, directly in the middle of the previous week, which was also in that week, which is also in this week, which is damn near in this week by just a few points, which was also in this week, right? And so you guys can see we've just been sitting here. And how many weeks is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. We've basically been sitting in the same spot since early January. And again, that's why I can't sit here and tell you, oh, we're definitely going up or we're definitely going down, because I don't know. But what I do know is that we're sitting in this massive range, and my process currently tells us we're pointing down. And so until otherwise, that's the way I'm leaning, unless we push above a significant pivot. We've talked about the 69.03 being our big above-below pivot for a momentum shift quite a few times, right? Okay, look what the previous weekly value area high is, 69.0875. I say that works. It's close enough, right? And then look what the previous week value area high is, the same exact level, probably to the tick, okay? So we know if we're breaking out above 69.0875, we're gonna push higher, okay? That's just flat, point blank how it works. All right, and we're going to push higher. How much higher? I don't know, but what I can tell you is when we get into our untested levels, I have my first one starts around 45, which is right here at the monthly value area high, which as you can see right here, which is where we start to have a lot of volume step in to the high side, okay? So keep that in mind. From the low side, we've talked about this 100 times. And again, this is kind of the range that we're stuck in right now, right? So we know that the 57 is our big weekly below that. And we also have a daily that we've been flirting with at 51. Well, the previous weekly value area low is 46. Okay, close enough. Couple points here, guys. I mean, let's not, get too exact here. This is how it works, right? Each one of these blocks represents 12 ticks, which is 3 points. So again, push lower underneath 46, we come lower. And that's really truly all that I can tell you right now, especially from a market profile perspective, is below 46, we come lower. Above 69.08, we go higher. I technically have no edge right now from where we sit once again, because as we sit in these massive ranges like this, my edge is in the edges. I've said it 1,000 times, and we are dead smack in the middle. Okay, that is just the nature of the beast right now. And so until we start to move around a little bit, I'm going to be sitting on my hands, right? And so right now I'm actually looking at the market as I'm starting to make this, and it looks like we may actually gap down a little lower. We'll see. Market opens in 5 minutes, so more than likely I will be here with you when this happens. Right now it's not showing that we're gapping down very much at all, about 10 points. So we'll see what happens when they open, however. So let's go ahead and go into the daily time frame just to show you guys. And again, here's the weekly. Here's the weeklies. You can see we're all this weekly, this weekly, this weekly, this weekly, all in the same range. It was very obvious on the TPO, but once again, the candlesticks reinforce this. Okay, so going into the daily time frame, again, I went ahead and reduced all the noise to the left. I only pulled out what was important because, let's be honest, that's all we really care about, right? And we have no untested dailies right now, nothing. Nothing. Do you hear me? No untested time frame, daily, nothing levels on the daily time frame. My only untested level is on the weekly higher at 69.4350. And, you know, at that point, we're above 28, which was our big level from last Wednesday or Thursday, I think, as we pushed in. Yeah, Wednesday, as we pushed into the 65, which then fell. Okay, so what I would do with here is I would look for 43 to play if price pushed above 28 and come back under 28. This is the same exact concept what we just talked about with SPX. Again, if 36 plays, you get back under 14 and you dump. Okay, that is the same exact play that I'm showing you guys. You just got to, you know, use your brain here, guys. Put the numbers together. You can do this. Okay, so on the other side of the spectrum, I have nothing untested lower either. Nothing. I mean, it is really, really, really difficult for us to get confident about buying and confident about shorting from the way I trade my process. Okay, right now, technically, it says we're going to open right around 60, which is right now, and we'll find out real soon, which means I do have an untested weekly to the upside right now at 68.83. Okay, we all know this level. We've talked about 83 a bunch of times. That is what the midpoint pivot where momentum shifts lower. We had the 57 monthly, we had the 83 weekly, and then we had the 03 weekly, right? That was where we kind of things go up, and the 57 where it goes down, and this is where the middle pivot shift. Again, you guys start to notice a pattern here. I keep talking about the 3 pivots here. We did it for VIX, we've done it for SPX. Now we're looking at it again for ES. So again, as I continue to look at this chart, we've talked about this before. This big spot down here at 67.65 and 67.61 has played in the overnight session. However, this level is so important and so big, and it did not play on the cash session. I truly believe this level can play again if price comes down here and plays this level on first touch. I do believe this would play. You want to see it get back above this massive weekly daily area at 67.88 and 67.94. Okay, the other play that I think is possible is if they sweep this level, we could actually come down and sweep this a little bit and start to reclaim. Now, how far would that take us? I don't know. Again, I'm speculating right now. And actually it looks like price is starting to gap down even farther now. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the 4-hour time frame. Okay, guys, now coming into the 4-hour chart, before I show you this, I'll show you right now, it does look like we are gapping down. We're at 68.25. We still got 1 minute left until the open, which means we're going to gap down about 50 points currently right now. So our downside bias seems to be pretty logical. Here we go. Let's see what we're doing. This is actually a fairly good place to actually buy. This was going to be one of the things I discussed in our video here. So we will see. I'm going to go ahead and get right back into this video now. So here's the 4-hour time frame. We've talked about this multiple times, and on Friday, guys, we had the daily at 68.93 that actually was tested here and brought us down. We still have one important 4-hour level up higher. That is the 4-hour level at 69.0150, as you can see right here. Okay, this is right in line with the 69.03 weekly that we've talked about prior. If they do, in fact, push above 69.03, I do believe that we can come higher. Okay, the 69.28 is that big daily that we've discussed multiple times. If they push above this, we will come up here and test the 69.43. And then obviously this area up here, we've got the 69.51 4-hour, and then we've got a big daily here, it's 69.61 again, and a 4-hour 69.66. So this whole area that we lost right here is still untested again. If they were to revisit this area, I would look for this area to play and get back above 40 or get back below 43 before initiating my short, and then ultimately under 28, they'll just give it up. Okay, but really, I truly believe that this is the big pivot right here for our big push higher. If they get above 69.03, I think we can come all the way into the 40s, okay, 40s and 60s. If they stay below 69.03 and ultimately this 4 hour at 69.01, we will continue to come lower, okay? And like I said before, I do have an untested weekly at 68.83 again. This has been a massive level for us as we've looked at this multiple times. It's also lined up with our previous weekly point of control. And so this whole area is resistance to me, really, from 83 to 01. Kind of picking out those two spots because we've talked about the big major weekly and pivots that we want to keep our eye on are the monthly at 57, the weekly at 83, and the other weekly at 03. Okay, so as we look lower, guys, we have talked about this level down here. We've talked about these levels lower, and really what I would be looking for, because I don't have anything untested, right? So what I would be looking for is a potential sweep underneath this 67.90 and a potential reclaim up here of the 88 and 67.94 for a pop higher into this resistance, okay? And again, if they do come down here in the 65, I truly believe this area could play again, but because it was tested, your best idea here is to let it sweep this low into 67.50 and then reclaim and come back up into the 61.65 and look to take profits around the 88.94, and then if they reclaim this, maybe add back in and try to get to your higher end of support here. So that's what I got for you guys. I mean, again, I'm just kind of calling it out as I see it. Right now knowing that we've gapped down, which kind of, again, is new information once again. We've got this big resistance at 35 now. We've got the big resistance at 57 that we need to watch. And so in order for us to get even back up to the 03 spot, we got to get back above 57 and really 35. Look how important 35 has been time and time again, and it looks like it even could be now. So we will see how this plays out for Monday at the open. I will personally not be trading this tonight. Best of luck for all of you that do, but it will be interesting to see how this works out in the overnight session and where we open up. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to leave you here, and I hope everyone had a great weekend. And I know we all had a great February. That's without a question. And so I look forward to absolutely conquering March with you guys. It's going to be a fantastic day tomorrow. I will see you guys tomorrow at 5 o'clock for the post-market breakdown, and we'll do it all over again. So see you soon, and have a great rest of your Sunday. Cheers.